Hello and welcome to Fine Print, the double scrutiny of the story and its coverage with me, Amir Arafat. But first, as always, we start with a quick check of the big print. Big print goes. G7 accentuates the positive on global economy. G7 sees early signs of global recovery. G7 offers hope crisis is easing. G7 finance chiefs predict recovery from economic crisis will begin this year. Yes, G7, some notes of optimism struck there. New York Times goes, world finance leaders meet and cautiously glimpse green shoots of recovery. Washington Post, the event has taken place. G7 signals worst of world recession may be over. Finance chiefs from the G7 powers said on Friday the global economy may be past the worst phase of a recession, although recovery was not yet assured. And they pledged to make sure the big financial firms are sound. A group of 7 finance ministers and central bankers said after a meeting that economic activity should begin to recover later this year. And they pledged to make sure the big financial firms are sound. U.S. Treasury Secretary Timothy Geithner said in his statement, and we have a clip.
We meet in the context of a severe downturn in the global economy. Now, without underestimating the very considerable challenges still ahead, there are signs that the pace of deterioration in economic activity and in trade flows has eased.
Well, that's what Timothy Geithner, U.S. Secretary of Treasury, had to say, talking about green shoots, talking about easing, but some do not agree. Reuters goes, stocks rise and bear market rally. Economist Rubini. For those of you who do not remember who Rubini happens to be, or a Dr. Doom would do. New York Times call him Dr. Doom and just, say Dr. Doom, Google it, and you'll find him. He was Dr. Doom. Why? Because he saw it all coming, all the doom and gloom. And Newsweek, he calls himself a realist, not Dr. Doom. He says, I am Dr. Realist. But let's check out what he had to say. I think the market is way ahead of real economic and financial data. I think people are deluding themselves. This could well be somehow around what actually Geithner had to say, the green shoots. He says, I don't see any green shoots. What I see is rather yellow weeds. And Rubini told reporters during a business lunch in Hong Kong on Monday, he said problems at U.S. financial institutions had not been fully reviewed and forecast their losses would rise to $3.6 trillion from $1 trillion US dollars so far during the crisis. He said, quote, I see financial shocks in the months ahead. Some financial institutions are in so much trouble, we may have to take them over, he told the audience. He expected U.S. unemployment at top 11%, so on and so forth. But IMF also and a World Bank are out there in Washington right after the G7 and some kind of a meeting of G20 in Washington, IMF and World Bank. But all of this has taken place against the backdrop of IMF report just out a few days back. Let's take a look at some more big print.
But nevertheless, we have still long months of economic distress in front of us. So that's my first message. The crisis is far from over.
Overall, we expect the global economy to decline by 1.3% in 2009. This is year on year. The weakest performance by far of the whole post-war period. Growth would return in 2010, helped by strong policies, but would remain just under 2%, so still well below what we would see as a normal growth rate for the average for the year.
This is what the IMF had to say. No green shoots there, but still more like this generated some headlines. The report out by IMF. Facing the abyss. IMF. World economy will not recover until 2010. World economy in severe recession, IMF says. International Monetary Fund warns that worldwide slump would be deeper than thought. Global recession worst since Depression, IMF says. IMF says recession will be deeper, recovery slower. IMF, global economy to contract for first time in 60 years. World economy to shrink for first time since Second World War. More jobs may go, says IMF. IMF sees no U.S. growth through 2010. $6 trillion lost in bad loans, IMF. To help us track the fine print, we're joined from Paris by Max Keiser, financial journalist, maxkeiser.com, CEO of PirateMyFilm.com. From Washington, we're joined by Paul Gallagher, economics editor with the Executive Intelligence Review magazine. Max, what is going on? Now, we have the G7, and we thought G7 was perhaps dead, and we're talking G20, G7 days over, and right now they're talking green shoots there. Do you see those greens?